Online, it is September 13th, 2019. It's Friday the 13th. Good morning, and let's go to Tweet Fleet, where we've seen a little bit of activity, besides that terrible picture of a foot. Fiery red, I think. I don't know what she's trying to show us there, but I'm going to hide that. I was just looking at a really neat little graph here from EVE Online itself on Twitter. That's at EVE Online. And they've given you a little picture that shows you what the faction ships look like and what they're from and what they're hybrids of. So for those that don't know, you have 4 playable races, essentially, in EVE Online. And in between those races, you have factions. And those factions are hybrids of the races as far as ships go. We're not talking lore. They're not derivatives of each other. We're talking about ships and ship types. So as you can see from this picture, and this is probably common knowledge for a lot of players, but it took a while for me to get exposed to this. So I imagine that other people still don't know what the pirate faction ships are. And when ships get described, they don't know why those ships are useful in the way that they are. Actually, we can talk about that most of this show if we need to, but there's some fights that we want to get to and stuff that's going on out there in Blackout EVE Online. So, for instance, you have the Amarian race, right? And then you have the Minmatar race, and you would think there's not much in common there. Well, they do have some political stuff in the game where you have the Amatar Empire that is basically Minmatars who are like, hey, we like the Amar way of life. We don't want to go back to the tribalism of Minmatar, so we're going to side with Amar, and that's what the Amatar space is. And there's a region for them. That's lore. But as far as the ships that live between the Amarian Empire and their former slaves, let's say the Minmatar, you have a common enemy to them is the Blood Raiders. They're these guys that basically are like, if you've seen TV show called Firefly, there was these marauders called the Reavers, and this is essentially EVE Online's Reavers. They are lawless marauders that pirate ships, kill the crew, and soak in their blood, basically. So they're the boogeyman in Amarian and Minmatar space. And their ships, if you look at their hulls, are covered in blood. At least it looks that way. They're gold with blood splashed all over the place. One second while I make an adjustment. I wanted to update the date. I had the wrong one up. Yeah, it's Friday the 13th. Watch out for Reavers, says Manaskar. So those ships would be like the Kruer, the Ashimu, the Balgorn. These guys are... Oh, and it's neat here. It says they use energy weapons, and they also use neutralizers and webs. And that's where they have their bonuses. So this little graph is really cool because it shows you not only the racial lines and the outline of the ship and the names, which will help you, but it shows you what they specialize in. So for instance, on the other side of the map, from Amar and Minmatar, you have Gallente and Caldari, who have, in the lore of the game, who have a close relationship. Basically, Caldari broke off from Gallente. And in between those two are the, what is that, Moa? See if I can bring this up. Oh, there we go. I'm drawing a blank, but you have the rabbit. Fatal and the Rabbit, and they're pirates. There's a whole like line of lore that comes out from Fatal and the Rabbit. It's a chronicle in EVE Online, and one of those chronicles is like a little fiction piece, minuet about EVE Online. They don't have anything to do with one another. They're just little minuets, and one of them is called Fatal and the Rabbit, and it talks about the origins of the Angel. No, that's not the Angel Cartel. I'm drawing a blank on these factions. Anyway, so Garistas. Oh my God. No, Blood Raiders are up there in the north. I just covered them. Garistas. Thank you. Seraph wrote it down. I didn't catch that he wrote it down. So the Garistas, I don't know why that took so long to process, are basically they're part of the origin story of Valkyrie, the game that split off, that was a virtual reality game in real life that you could play. So that comes out of Garistas. And the Garista line is between Gallente and Caldari. And they have like the Worm as their frigate. They have the Gila. I say it Gila because I'm Mexican and I speak Spanish. And then you have the Rattlesnake. These guys use drones and missiles. The Gila especially is a drone, known for being a very powerful drone cruiser. It's been used in a lot of PvE because drones do very well against PvE. You don't have to target the targets, so you don't have to waste time doing that. And the drones go out and start wreaking havoc on NPCs, really cutting through them quickly. So also in between them, you have, is it MOA? It's a different navy aligned with Caldari. I forget what they're called. And they use missiles as well, and they are tacklers. So you have the Garmer, which is a good ship for PvP. Oh, Mortis Legion. Thank you, Seraph. Why don't you come on, Seraph? I'm drawing blanks on those factions for some reason. I don't fly those ships or favor them. And they only have their symbol here. So one correction I would make to this map is to actually write down what the factions are called in case people refer to them. But what we know about Mortis Legion is that they're missile boats. They have a really strong missile platform. And you can see that this is interesting, and I hadn't thought about it till just now, but this shows you that you have two lines between Minmatar and Gallente, and two lines of factions between Gallente and Caldari. And that's not true for the Amarians. They only have one line between Minmatar and Amar and Caldari, which is curious because it seems like there's room for a couple more factions there, but they're not there. So maybe they were going in that direction and they've kind of moved that kind of work, that lore work or more faction stuff. They've moved all that work into abyssal stuff and gone away from the empires and gone more towards precursors, which are like races that were around, like the ancient ones of EVE Online. They're not around anymore, but they left technology, and that technology can be found in wormholes and now in abyssal sites. And those ships, that technology is the stuff that they're developing now. So yeah. Going back, let's go back a little bit so between Caldari and Gallente, you have drones and missiles, and that is perfect because Caldari used missiles. So Mortis Legion, who's near Caldari, uses missiles as well. And Gallente, they're known for using drones. And so Garistas, they use drones and missiles. So these things kind of favor each other. They're on a spectrum. Gallente, they use, as I said, drones and hybrids. And if you look over on the other side of Gallente, between Gallente and Minmatar, this is where you have two other factions. You have Serpentis, which are very much like Gallente. They use hybrid weapons as well. And you have the Daredevil, the Vigilant, and the Vindicator. Those are the Vindicator is the battleship for Serpentis. Now, Serpentis, they have super capitals as well. We won't get into any of the super capitals. We're just talking about sub-capitals. And if you go a bit further closer to Minmatar, you'll see that you have the Angels. And the Angels are fast ships, and they use projectile weapons, just like Minmatar. These are favored in PvP because you can maneuver quickly, you can outpace other people's guns, you can get in and out of situations. So PvPers that are proficient at commanding their ships quickly prefer faster ships because you have to think faster, and your weaponry is faster. But they're harder to control, so you need to be a little more proficient in actually playing the game as a combat pilot. So that has a Dramamil, which is a fast frigate tackler. And you have Cinnaball. I always like the Cinnaball. It's like, it looks like it's a little tank. I mean, it used to have a great tank. I don't know where it is now as far as the fittings go and stuff like that, but I did like Cinnaball a lot when we were flying them. And then one of the most favored battleships over the last 4 or 5 years, and actually before that it was a pirate battleship, but pirate battleships became so cheap that they started becoming fleet ships. I'll talk about that in a second. That battleship from the Angel Cartel is the Macarial. And again, Macarials and Dramamils were preferred by pirates, because player pirates, basically, people who like to roam around in low sec and some of null sec, low security areas, to capture players that are trying to take a shortcut through dangerous space. That's where pirates hang out. And they prefer these fast ships because usually they're well acquainted with PvP, since that's what they like doing. And so the Macarial was very much a niche. It was expensive, so it was very much a niche battleship for pirates who needed some speed and firepower, because the Macarial is incredibly fast. Well, the BPCs, or the things that make these ships, became so oversupplied, because people kept running the missions to do them, that the Macarial became very cheap. So did all the other faction battleships, but the Macarials were very fast, and a fast big doctrine in nullsec works very well because you have more maneuverability. And so the Macarials, when they became cheap, were affordable by not just specialized pirates that spent a lot of money on their ship, but became cheap enough for the line member in a big alliance to be able to afford. So the alliance started buying up a lot of Macarials, and you had a doctrine, I believe it was started by CO2, at least they take credit for it. And that must have been 3 years ago or more, like 3.5, 4 years ago. The Macarial became a fleet ship, and it stayed that way for quite a long time. At one point, it was the only ship that would really come to a fight. That would be like one of the staples. It would be T3s and Macarials were really the only things that were fighting. And T3 is a Tech 3. So that is the Angel Cartel. They're fast. They hit with projectile weapons, which are long range. And they're like the machine gun of EVE Online. Whereas hybrids are more like the sniper rifle, long range, one shot at a time kind of thing. Okay, so then the last two are the last group is the other side of the factions, which is the top and the right here. The Amarians. I was reading the Imperial Navy Slicer, but that's actually the Amarian race. And the Caldari race. Sitting right between those two races are the vampires. These are called Sansha. And Sansha was basically a Caldari tycoon, a weapons builder. He went kind of nuts, and he escaped with he was a cult leader, and he escaped with his people. And he zombified them with technology, being able to control them like a hive. And he reappeared as Sansha. And he's like the leader of this kind of mind-controlled vampire group. So they use energy weapons like the Amarians do, and they have bonuses to afterburners to give them some speed. So these are also fast ships, and because they're energy, basically lasers, they pack a lot of damage. So their ships are the Succubus, which is the frigate, the Phantasm, which is the cruiser, and the big ship is called the Nightmare. And these ships have like spikes all over them, so they're pretty cool. The Nightmare was known very much for being glass cannons. They could project a ton of damage. With enough of them, you could you could just volley things off the field one at a time and really cut through an enemy's ability to repair itself. So the Nightmares were, but they were very susceptible to damage because they didn't have a very strong tank. So that line, the Sancha, that line of faction actually came back, I think it was 2012, as the Incursions. So if you've ever run or heard about Incursions in EVE Online, those are attacks on the empires created by the Sancha. And the Sancha had managed to get their hands on, it appears, wormhole technology so they can just appear. They can just appear anywhere on the map, and they stay until they're removed by players, which happens pretty quick. I think it's been within 2 days or a week at the most. Those are called Incursions, and there's usually 3 or 4 of them around EVE Online at any given time. All right, those are some of the factions. I hadn't thought of talking too much about them, or I would have not forgotten Mordu's Legion and Garistas. But this popped up on Twitter, so I decided to have a look at it and talk about those ships. That is EVE Online. That is at EVE Online. Check out that faction chart. It's pretty cool. Okay, guys, welcome. It's Friday the 13th. Let's see what we can find in the news. What are we talking about here in chat? Oh, Apollo, I wish you a good flight. It looks like you're on a flight. Okay. Let's see what we can find. So there was a battle report, and looks like just a day after the Sinos changes, the Test Corp Spartan Vanguard spotted Oracle mining an asteroid belt in Cache. That is the southeast of the map. It's kind of close to drone regions, but you're starting to get into the proper south at about Cache. And it is the historical home of Solar Fleet, I believe. So the article, the after action report, goes on to say, initially we take 18 Nightmares, we just talked about Nightmares, thinking that we would only be a subcapital response fleet to fight with. However, it became apparent that our target was a little more prepared than expected. Defenders burned to a recon in Sinoing and Afax, 2 carriers and 2 dreads. So these battleships, these faction battleships, are set upon by some capital ships, 2 carriers and dreadnoughts, and 3 dreadnoughts. Then a second recon, these are reconnaissance ships that can bring in other ships by lighting a Sino. They are now one of the few ships that are able to do that. Brought in 2 additional fax and carrier, along with a subcapital gang of Drekavacs. So those are the new precursor ships of Drekavacs that I was talking about. They're not part of the faction chart that we talked about. They're something separate. They're part of the Ancient Ones and the Ancient Ones technologies. So after killing them... Oh, who's that?
Hi.
Hey, dude.
Hey.
How you doing, man?
I was just going to add that the Drekavac is actually the precursor battlecruiser, which means it has the highest damage of all of the medium platforms.
Mm-hmm.
The Incursion ramps pretty high, and I think that the Incursion can ultimately ramp higher than the Drekavac.
Mm-hmm.
But the Drekavac, being the battlecruiser, starts up high and still ramps a pretty respectable amount.
Cool. Well, we'll come back. I want to talk more about the precursor technology. I was just talking about factions, and we'll come back to that. I'll finish reading this battle report, and then we'll get back to that. So after killing the majority of the subcap fleet, we were able to... So at this point, the Nightmares are killing the subcaps. It doesn't say they're killing the capitals yet, but he says we were able to have some success with the capitals. So now they start engaging the capitals. But it was decided to figure out how to get our capitals onto the field. So at this point, they're escalating. A second fleet of Drekavacs and now Guardians, which are logistic ships, those are repair ships. So they arrive, and those were a little more difficult to handle. While we eliminate this second fleet, we have now lost basically our support ships and tackle, allowing the Rorqual to get away. So that's what they were jumping on. So support ships would be anything from electronic warfare to logistic ships, the ships that are repairing you. And tackle is what you use to grapple other ships so that you can hold them down while your team tries to destroy them. So the Rorqual gets away, and they've lost their support ships. As we get our Sino out for our capitals, a third defensive fleet of 15 Armageddons, those are Amarian battleships, and Typhoons, those are Minmatar battleships, lands on the grid, pushing us off. Once our recon is ready, we all warp back to the grid and Sino in our dreads, snagging 2 more dreads and 7 of the battleships. Okay, so that is a battle report that happened. And it shows you a couple of things about EVE Online that are very important. You see an escalation pattern. You also see what I think is new to Blackout, which is the defensive fleets are scrambling to keep up. They didn't bring everything in at the same time. It's almost like as one group becomes available, you throw that in there, and then as another group is available, you throw that in there as well, because you don't have like all the faxes coming in at one time. They're coming in 2 groups, which I think that's pretty interesting. It might have been that way before, but it just seems like the fights are becoming a little more chaotic.
Right. Well, it used to be that, so you'd light your Sino, you jump in your caps, your first squad of caps.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of those caps would light a hard Sino, and that would be your second escalation. So now that process, they're still trying to do that kind of like ante-up poker game fleet warfare.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have that ability to, escalate via Titan Sino or Carrier Sino or Pack Sino or whatever you want to call it. So they're having to be more creative about how they're bringing in their forces.
Yeah. I do see some changes. There's definitely something going on with combat seems a little more volatile. And that is exactly what EVE Online needed. You need that things can happen, things can go wrong. Take it away for a second. I have to take a phone call.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's really interesting because if you think about like the possibility space of fights now, with things like Blackout and the Drifter wormholes and the Sino changes, what you do is the obvious answer, like I just said, of Sinoing in a capital and then using that capital to Sino in everybody else. Like that avenue is kind of blocked out for you. So you have like these other more creative solutions. You can light an industrial Sino, bring in the Blops, have the Blops do a regular Sino, bring in everybody else. That brings the Blops into risk, but then you get all these other interesting scenarios where maybe there's a fleet of people, stealth bombers, that you literally don't even know about because they're all cloaked up in some other system and you didn't detect them coming in. And so they could hit from anywhere as they would want to. Or worse yet, with the number of drifter wormholes that are going on, you never know when somebody will hear. It's kind of like the old days where tie-dye would make it so that everybody can make it to every fight. Well, if there's a big fight, then I guarantee you there's going to be some people that are hunting for those drifter wormholes right away to try to make a highway to add themselves into the fight. So you have actually what effectively amounts to random escalations as people become connected to the fight more or less easily, depending on how the wormholes shift. So a lot of really interesting setups for conflict to adapt to. And I think that we're starting to see the results of that.
Yeah, and I think Crack at Gaming here says something that's interesting. Drifter wormholes don't allow for big fleets of doctrine ships through. And I think that's a very good point. So you're getting a lot of, you're seeing the fleets that are able to get around to things be smaller. I think that was a big part of when Snuff was attacking GOTG, or sorry, the Dead Coalition, and they got they didn't get stuck, but they couldn't bring in their reinforcements, the initiative, because they hadn't actually prepared for it. And the best that could happen was that the initiative could send bombers through wormholes, I believe, to go to that area to help them out. And they did help them out. They got them free. Otherwise, Snuff would have paid a much bigger price. That said, by the way...
Well, I know that the Stuka Fleet, for example, super popular right now and involve almost exclusively small ships. So those things can maneuver incredibly easily and appear all over the universe, as people have discovered.
Yes, they're all over the place, and it's oppressive, right? Like what's going on in EVE Online right now for nullsec is oppressive, and I have been told I wouldn't appreciate how oppressive it is unless I go out and mine, go out and kill some NPCs for bounties in a battleship, and then try that in a Nyx and see how long you last out there. They said I would probably be dead within an hour, and that tells you something about how oppressive the wormhole null blackout is. You don't know who's in the system, and you can't just watch the gates to see people coming through. So those two things alone have completely changed the dynamics of living in nullsec, where it used to be a guaranteed paycheck with pretty solid safety. You could generate a ton of money, and then it scaled so well because you could have multiple ships, play multiple clients, and make twice as much, 3 times as much, 4 times as much, 8 times as much money, because you had that many ships out there. And if any one of them got into trouble, they would be saved. And that was an untenable situation, even though it lasted a long time. It lasted months and months and months. CCP finally changed the environment to make that kind of money making nearly impossible. All right. There was one other bit of news. It looks like Guardians of the Galaxy. I did it again. Dead Coalition. Yeah, Dead Co. Oh, Apollo's here.
Buddy.
Hey, how are you doing? I thought you were getting on a plane.
No, I was making a joke that I was gonna board your ship and pod you. You misread that.
Oh yeah, I was like, have a safe flight. Wait a minute, that's not what he meant. How's it going, Apollo? Do you know what the situation is in Venal and Tenal up there in the north?
What situation are you referring to?
I think NC is deployed up there. I'm not sure if it's hard deployment or not, but they are attacking. I think they're attacking Dead Coalition. They want to repay Sort Dragon, I think, for letting goons go north without any problems.
Well, I can't tell you anything on the reasoning why we've moved, but we do have what Vince calls a rapid style deployment up to the northern tip of Cobalt Edge, which does border. So yes, they are actively hunting Dead Co.
Oh, okay. So it's equivalent to harassment, or are they taking down structures and intending to do permanent damage to the infrastructure?
It's such a new deployment that I really couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I know no info for you, buddy. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Also up there in at least I believe it's Venal is Horde Vanguard. I think they're Blops wings actually up there. So on September 7th, NC deployed to HB TAC in Cobalt Edge, which is on the border of Tenal. The main goal of the campaign is to have some fun. Mainly they moved during the weekend with a suitcase, caps and subcaps, mainline doctrines, and that would mean Munins, Harpies, and bombers and that sort of thing. So there's the NC deployment in a nutshell. But also up there in Tenal is Horde Black Ops, and those guys are taking out Dead Co infrastructure. And that means like jump beacons and jump bridges and that sort of stuff. So Dead Coalition feeling some heat from Northern Coalition and a little bit of Horde. Yeah, man. How are you doing? Apollo.
Oh, I'm doing good. Thank you. Just finished up my Vegas stuff, so I'm really happy.
Yes, it's confirmed I am going to Vegas.
Yes.
I wasn't sure, but I went ahead and made arrangements, and I will be there. I haven't decided if I will apply to be a speaker. I usually have a little bit less fun when I do that, so the decision's not made.
This is the last Vegas, bro. Just go to enjoy it.
Yeah,
I'm really considering putting my name in the hat to be a speaker just so I can get a ticket.
Oh, did you? Are you going to, or?
I just need to figure out what I want to suggest that I can talk about.
Yeah, you can talk about a whole bunch of different things. Where is Ron? Why isn't he here? I want to talk to him about something.
Yeah, Ron, jump your ass on voice, man.
Yeah.
So, if I could, there is actually real news, or there's news on my side of the
real news
too. Real news.
Go.
No, so this week has seen basically new changes every single day since the expansion.
Oh,
or
wow.
since the patch. So obviously on Tuesday, pretty significant changes, sign no changes, everybody kind of adapting to that. But there was that warning that the Triglavians are entering into low sec.
Mm-hmm.
So of course we spent a fair chunk of the day. I had my scouts and little birds or whatever you want to call them out in low sec trying to find these things. Couldn't find them. So we weren't sure what was going on, although we did see the new Emergent Conduits. And these Emergent Conduits are actually really, really cool. They look like they're going to be one of the CCP's kind of answer to combat anomalies. They're like the new kind of combat anomaly. And they're worth good money, and people have been having some fun with them. But then on Wednesday, we got our very first low-sec footholds, which means today, in theory, we might see our very first low-sec world arcs, which I probably will not be doing today, but maybe soon. But it does explain a few things, like why they put acceleration gates on the world arc matches for to protect those inside in the same way that a Plex is protected by an acceleration gate, but also probably to prevent people from just like warping their Titans into the world arc and just bosoning it.
I was just about to ask you, can I get my Titan in there?
That's my point. Like I think that because they added it at the same time, I think they wanted to make sure that the world arc couldn't be cheesed that badly. Although I mean, dreads and majors are going to be totally a thing if you want to. So that's really interesting. We spent the whole day in lowsec doing some stuff. We made like only 400 million ISK because we were doing miners in loot and salvage. We discovered that the rewards are about 40% higher. Actual like payouts are about 40 to 47% higher in lowsec for the exact same site. And then we also we killed a Vexer, a Moa, and 2 Legions. So overall, pretty successful day for a bunch of ships that were like 30 million ISK Augurers and 70 million ISK Harbingers and stuff.
Yeah.
So lots of fun. And then yesterday, of course, we see the beginning of the renovation of Jita 4.4.
Oh,
haven't really figured out what's going on today.
Yeah. So they actually have changed the model, and you can see some of the construction. Or?
The scaffolding has been put up.
Okay.
I don't know if I went and actually saw it with my own 2 eyes, but
I'll check it out. I'll put it up on screen tomorrow. That's great. Now I want to switch. Is that everything?
Well, I just wanted to say that all of this is, of course, ramping up for G Fleet this weekend.
That's right.
Which I'm sure I'm relatively sure will advance our knowledge of the situation and the plot.
Well, thanks for telling us, Ash, because we really need to keep an eye on, and we should make a list of all the changes that are happening inside of EVE Online, because those things are coming and going so fast. We don't know. I wouldn't say they're coming so fast. We haven't been able to keep track of all the things that are changing.
I mean, I have a question for Ash.
What's up?
On CC, they've got some new recs. One's called the Bomb TFU rec, and one's called the MJFG TFU rec. What do you think that stands for?
So the MJFD TF or whatever that rec,
G.
that's the transportation pylon rec.
Right. Okay.
We encountered that. That's actually another good point, which is that there are there are lots of changes to invasions this week. They have become significantly more deadly. They have become much more tricky. In our World Arc fight, we lost 3 Guardians, a Vindicator, another T1 Battleship, and a Harbinger, and an Incursion, and we considered it a victory. Like, we lost that many in the 20-second chaos that it takes to get free of the World Arc once you're finished. The amount of newt pressure and switching targets and such like that has increased significantly since last week.
I mean, where the newts like doubled almost, they're just savage now.
Over doubled.
They eat your capacitor. Yeah.
Almost every single neuter in the invasion sites have had their newts basically doubled. Now, the major neuting threat most of the time is called the Starving Drekovic. And so what they did was they doubled that thing's newt pressure, but they also halved its hit points. So basically you have these ships that you can crunch through super quick. Like if you focus fire on them, you can kill them in like 2 or 3 seconds each. But within 6 seconds, you'll start hearing call outs from your Guardians. My cap is broken. My cap is broken. Need more cap. Blah, blah, blah. Because if you think about it, each one of them, if there's 6 of them on field at one time, which there can be 6 that spawn at one time, if they all target the same Guardian, they can take a Guardian from full cap to 0 in one cycle between the 6 of them.
There's a question in chat here. Did they also up the amount of players you can take for rewards?
There is no limit. The limit for rewards is actually 60 people, and nobody actually hits that. So there is no upper limit for how many people that you can bring. The issue actually becomes at a certain point, like, you almost can't solve the problem with more logi. Now, obviously, some of these capacitor problems we can fix with a few more creative solutions. But like in the World Arc in particular, like when you have 1 or 2 of your logi boost and then 2 more of your logi chain. Yeah. There's these status effect pylons. So there's the transportation pylon that can teleport your guys away. And then you've got ECM pylons. So about halfway through the fight, you get to this point where, like, your 2 to 3 logi in your chain can all be taken out of commission at roughly the same time. So you have to anticipate that. And then, of course, during the actual Zoria challenge itself, there's a whole bunch of extra newts on field. And as I said, they start switching targets so fast that it's just hard for the Guardians to catch everybody.
Yeah, with the new emergent conduits that are scattered all around HiSec that just sort of pop up as anomalies, with the rewards for those, do you know how much that scales up to? Because doesn't it give out the same reward for multiple people?
Yeah,
I've done it with one
so
other
that's
person
really
and it's giving me the same reward, but is it 3? Is it 4?
up to 3. Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, I think there's like 13 million ISK and 900 LP up for grabs in any given minor conduit. But if you go in with but the most you can get paid out is 4.5 million ISK and 300 LP. So what this means is that, like, a single person can go grind these things out, and you can do it with a single person, no problem. Like my Incursion just carves through them like they didn't even exist, and they're pretty good money. But what's funny is that, like, so even a second character, even like an Imicus or something like that, would speed you up and also make more money, right? Because they're not soaking up your money; they're making, they're getting their own cut. So I really think that these
get yourself a newbie with a salvager and a civilian gun, basically.
Totally. Yeah, no. I think that these are the friendship machine right here, right? So if you think about it, it's very much like a Plex, right? So you are grinding these things. Now, as of right now, they always appear in the same system. So when you clear 1 minute after the previous one is closed, the new one spawns. So you can just roll them all day. So if you have a guy who's kind of experienced or whatever, who's rolling these things, and then you've got a more newer person that suddenly enters into one, it's not a negative experience. That newer player isn't detracting from your reward. And
the
so
faster you can do them, the more you can do them, basically, because there's one in each.
exactly.
All right.
So you're more inclined to take that newer player and saying, hey, come with me. So now you've got two people that are working together in a positive way. And then a third person can join in. But once you got that, now you can practice on against the Rasnenborg or whatever. But effectively, you now have an Abyss team. So you've gone from nothing to an Abyss team,
All right.
all because of these silly sites.
Thanks, Ash. We'll come back to this. What I want to do now, because we need to close up, is talk to one of the guys that works with us here at TIS, who's now a Skirmish FC officially for Test Alliance, and apparently had a really good fight. How's it going, Ron, USMC?
Good, man. Good. How are you doing, buddy?
Good. We've been hearing about you. Took on Elo Knight.
Right?
Took on Elo Knight and survived. Not only survived, but killed his Munin fleet. That is like what?
Yeah, I was sweating, dude. No joke. Like I was sweating because I didn't even know that I was going to Strat FC that, right? Like about an hour and a half before, because usually at that level, there's like one or two Strat FCs, and then skirmish FCs, right, are like the rank below. So and then there's a bunch of skirmishes. Oh my God, this is going to be rough. So it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy, man.
Were you nervous?
I was pretty nervous. Oh God, yeah, I was so nervous. And I've known him for years, and he's always super nice to me. I have a good relationship with him, over the past years, and I used to fly, when he would FC, and I would kind of backseat him and learn and stuff. So, but he's just one of those guys that has a massive amount of skill and experience that you're just, kind of walking on eggshells, right? Because you don't want to do anything stupid and,
I don't know,
just go wrong.
You have a lot of room to say like, hey man, it was Elo. What do you want? Like, of course I got killed. So
exactly.
It would make me relax.
Right?
I'd be like, it's all right. I'm not expected to win
totally
this.
done that. Like, dude, what do you expect, man? Come on.
Yeah. But that didn't happen. You actually bested him, which was kind of funny. I don't think it's funny that you did it. I think that there's something new at work here that even FCs are struggling with blackout because they don't have the same control they had before. They don't have the same situational awareness.
Yeah, and I still can't confirm it, but I'm almost positive that there was a trap set up for me right past this regional gate, because I had a scout that had eyes on them, and they were at 46 and snuffed out. This was their first engagement with us, and I just had a feeling. I saw some bombers, and I had a feeling that they had a trap set up for me on the other side of that, and I was trying to get eyes on the bigger snuffed out group, and I couldn't. And Elo had left like 10 minutes earlier than me, and he's closer. So it's like, it just wasn't adding up, right? So as I have my entire fleet lined up and I'm looking at this regional gate, I'm like, you know what? It doesn't seem right. So I don't care. I'm just going to turn around and I'm going to go back a couple of jumps, and I'm going to take the long way around, right? Which is all these jump gates. And come to find out, that actually was a really good call, because they lost eyes on me because they couldn't follow me through the jump gates. And taking, I think it's 4 jump gates, it lands right in the middle of the constellation that the target was. So the next time they saw me, I was already set up, with a nice blockade in the constellation. So they had to jump into me, right? And I had it all bubbled, and
which is an advantage.
It worked out well. Yeah.
Good. That's awesome. I was so happy to hear that. It surprised me. We learned about it yesterday, but congratulations on a good fight, and congratulations becoming a skirmish FC for Test.
I'm going the hard way around. I'm going from host to guest.
Awesome.
That's the really hard path.
All right.
But I have to throw it out though real quick. So today's the 3rd day. I did the first fight. Yesterday was John and Rad. another really big fight, even bigger actually. And today it was another really big fight. So 3 days offensive actions from Winterco. We've been fighting. So shout out to everybody
Yeah.
that's been fighting. And AOM, right? My fight was the first day that we fought with AOM, and that was pretty exciting as well.
Yeah. If you did not listen to yesterday's episode, I strongly recommend it. The other stuff is, just entertainment to keep you company while you're on a long flight or a long truck drive or whatever. But yesterday's was very concise, and we explained what we knew about the war going on. And it was really a solid 30 minutes of let's lay this out. So check out yesterday's episode, September 12th. I want to transition now to Killah Bee, who's here. He's a FC for Northern Coalition, but he's also going to G Fleet. He's also a CSM member too. Forgot to mention.
I'm not going to G Fleet.
Oh no! I thought you were going.
No, I was planning to,
Yeah.
but I had a work project this weekend, or I still have. So I handed the organization off to somebody else in NC, and he's taking. I did just wire them some money though, so they could get a bunch of drinks on my tab, basically.
So
that's
bought
my
everybody a drink?
participation.
Oh, that's too bad. Sorry to hear that. I thought I remember you looking forward to it and stuff.
I was. It's going to be the first G Fleet that I'm going to miss. I was at every G Fleet so far, and it's always been a blast. But as I've said earlier to my fellow NC friends, I actually did a lot of promotion within NC to get people to G Fleet, and I think we got like 15, 20 people going now, which is not bad considering it's in Europe. I know our Vegas numbers are way bigger. But
that's a recent phenomenon. They weren't that big before. But
yeah, it's because QD has been pushing them pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
just QD, okay.
Apollo's in here too.
Thanks, Killah. Appreciate you.
Don't pay much attention.
Lady Scarlet and Apollo.
Stuff.
Yeah, they built up that crowd, that NC crowd presence, and they got 70 people, I think, last year, which was unbelievable because before that they had like 12 or 15.
I was definitely going. I was supposed to have a vacation this week up to G Fleet. I actually specifically took it for G Fleet.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was offered to take over a project at work, and I took it because it was a good opportunity for me. So I decided to, put my real life in front of Eve for once.
Yeah.
I've not done that in like 11 years, so probably it's time to start.
Well, it's a good thing you're young. You can do that when you're young, but I guess you're growing up.
Yeah, pretty much.
What can we expect out of a meet like G Fleet? What happens at G Fleet?
Oh, they're going to have a keynote tomorrow morning, and I think they're going to be announcing something.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, don't want to spoil it too much.
You know what it is,
but
but you
definitely
can't tell us.
An announcement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be an announcement, and so you should definitely check out the live stream. I'm pretty sure that's going to be streamed as well through the Streamfleet guys at the CCP channel, I guess. The keynote, it's tomorrow at 11:30 German time, so that is 9:30 Eve time. If you're up that early by any chance, then you should check it out. But I'm sure it'll be on Reddit like 2 minutes after it's been announced, so it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's and then usually people just get drunk. Like at 6 p.m. on Friday, if I was there, I would be drunk already. I would not be capable of coming onto this show anymore. Oh, there's that. Yeah, it's a very good time usually. And this time, obviously, it's very much supported by CCP as well, which wasn't the case in the previous years. Obviously, CCP has always supported the player meetups, and they've sent devs and they've sent some equipment and stuff like that. But this year around, with the whole World Invasion Tour, they've been supporting G Fleet much more than they ever have, and that's why it's a great venue as well, and it's a really they have a lot to offer. Not to mention the tournament as well, right? Like the prize you could win at the tournament is just insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like all you have to do is beat some noobs at the 2v2 tournament at G Fleet, and you get a free stay for FanFest 2020. Like you get paid the hotel, the flight tickets, and everything, right? It's what you can win. And beating some noobs like from Germany it can't be that hard, man.
They're
German
drunk.
Eve players aren't that good. There's like a couple good German Eve players. That's it, right? Like the rest of them is pretty meh. So
yeah, they're really good builders, though.
Yeah, that's true. Pretty good industry guys.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that some of my old lumpy friends are going to win the prize this year around, that they're going as well again. And most of them are on Skill or actually Skill doesn't exist. Most of them are somewhere now, I don't know where. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they're going to play and win. And then they're going to get a free FanFest trip. Shouldn't be too bad.
That's awesome. So do you have any thoughts real quick on the CSM or Blackout. We haven't talked to you for a while. I'm wondering what your opinions are on either of those things.
So the first summon happened, and I thought it was okay. I've been pretty disgruntled with the CSM lately, pre-summit, mainly because there was very much a lack of communication, at least in my opinion. I also, due to work, I haven't put as much effort into it as I could. So maybe I could have gotten more info out of certain people if I just poked them privately and talked to them and pushed a bit more. But I was a bit mad about that. Some of the most major changes in the last couple of months, naming the blackout, naming design changes and stuff like that, we weren't really involved in at all, and that kind of just made me a bit sad. Summit was decent. We got some stuff out of it, and there was some communication. And I can highly suggest you guys go read Dunk Dinkle's blog post about it. Maybe somebody can pull up his blog and link it. He summarized the summit very, very well, I think, and really kind of, he basically got it to the point, in my opinion, anyways, to what I took out of the summit. And we'll see how things go on from this point on. It's usually a bit grim before the first summit. I feel like it's kind of weird because some of the CSM members have been there for multiple years, and you would expect that things don't just reset themselves every year. But it kind of feels that way now that I'm on my second term. The first, basically the phase leading up to the first summit of my second term felt exactly like the first bit leading up to the first summit in my first term. It feels like there's basically almost no communication or very little until the first summit. Then people get to know each other, people build up some relationships, and then the communication picks up, they talk more, and then things go from there, really. And I hope that it's going to get better now.
All right, good. So it's reminiscent of last year, kind of the same cycle.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I hoped it would be, a bit better, but it's fine.
What are you doing?
We'll fix it.
What are you doing in this era of Blackout? It sounds like you're doing a lot of real life stuff, so you're not able to play.
Yeah, I haven't actually played a lot. Obviously, NC. is deployed towards GOTG about a week ago. In fact, exactly 1 week ago, on I think Saturday, we deployed towards. We staged an HB TAC now in Cobalt Edge, which is right on the border to Tino, and we've been starting to hit some jump gates, some structures on the border of the GOTG space or sphere of influence or whatever you want to call it, and we've been creating some content that way. We've had the first major standoff on Wednesday. Actually, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday in AUTZ at 1300 EVE time. There was a Fortizar timer. GOTG formed up pretty big. I think they bat phoned in it as well, although that is, I don't know if they bat phoned them or if it just wanted to third party. And then we formed up pretty big. We got a huge turnout, surprisingly, from NC. At that time, we had like 300 people, which was pretty insane considering it was the middle of the day. And well, there was no fight. The fort just died because they couldn't contest our form up at the time. We had a pretty massive Titan fleet as well. So there was that. And we'll see how that goes. I'm hopefully going to be doing some. So I actually do have vacation now next week, so I'm going to try to create some timers and see if I can get some content in EOTZ or even AOTZ. I wouldn't mind playing with the Aussies a bit, because obviously that's GOTG stronger time zone. I think that my chances of getting a fight in EOTZ are rather slim, but I think I'll have a good shot of getting a fight or two in AOTZ. So I'm going to try to make that happen and see what how things go from there.
Yeah, Dead Coalition is an Australian time zone strong group. That's when they do a lot of their activity.
Yeah, well, mostly China and Russia now. I think that I mean, I don't want to. Darkness is still the leader of the coalition, right? But they're not really the powerhouse of the coalition anymore. They're mostly being carried by Ranger Regiment and Siberian Squad now, which are a Chinese and Russian alliance respectively. So those are basically the power core of their coalition at this point. Darkness themselves aren't really that powerful anymore, at least in terms of the numbers they can field. But they obviously supply all the infrastructure and the all that kind of stuff. So it helps out.
They're the administrators.
Yeah, basically they're the paper pushers at this point.
Yeah.
The dead part.
And they do.
The dead part.
They do obviously feel some numbers as well.
They're the dead part of the coalition.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Dead
It's fine.
Oh, is this campaign, is NC up there as payback for Sword Dragon, or is that overstated?
Certainly sells that way in the narrative. Yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't care that much. I'm not sure how much Vince actually gives a shit, but
Mm-hmm.
it's always great. You can just go up to this guy and be like, look, this is Sword Dragon. He did this and that. They kind of backstepped us when goons came or whatever. Obviously, if you talk to Sword, then he will have a way different story of how we backstepped them in the first place when we didn't help him versus Horde when Horde and BL attacked Branch. And it's fine. I think it's for us. It makes sense because we're still very much in the early phases of setting up our stuff in Melpace. Obviously, after goons evicted us from Tribute and Vale from the north, we've moved into drones. We've moved into Melpace, which is a very very good region. It's incredibly dense. You have a very high number of systems in range of our staging. For example, we stage an NSI in Malpace, and with just one Titan bridge, right, with a Titan, we can hit 222 systems from the staging system. So we can cover 222 systems with our umbrella from NSI, with our Supercap fleet, right, without having to mid them or anything at all. That makes it a very powerful region for mining and ratting, obviously, because we have a lot of systems available. Basically, almost everybody could have their own system, and it would still be supplied, and we could cover them. And we're still working on getting set up. We're basically doing now what Goons did 3 years ago, where we are starting to mine moons all together. We've now started to set up a cycle where all our good moons that we have available, which is a lot in that space, they all come out at the same day, and then we have a huge Rorqual fleet. We did it the first time, I think 2 weeks ago or something. We had like 130 Rorquals in the fleet, which is for us very good.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went around and mined all those moons, and then we give some of the money to the corps. We take some of the money for the alliance and stuff like that. And we're still working on all of that. So we had to pick a deployment for PvP that was somewhat close to home, and that would allow us to, give the dudes some sort of PvP, because we've been setting in Malpay doing basically nothing for like a couple of months now, and everybody just wanted to go out and shoot shit again now that summer is coming to an end as well. People want PvP again, so that's what we're doing. And obviously, like you said, the narrative works really well with GOTG, where you can just go and call them a backstabber or whatever, and then people are happy to shoot them, and you go shoot some stuff, see if you get a fight.
Well, a couple of things come to mind. Apollo, you can probably answer this too. Isn't the super umbrella concept kind of on hold right now? And isn't trying to catch up to Goon Swarm, isn't it a bit late for that? Those are the things that I think the audience would ask.
You can catch up, right? That's true, but you have to start so the main issue is that what I've always been saying is Goons saw the light very early on. They realized what had to be done in this new era of Eve, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, now we have another new era, the Chaos era, but let's not get into that because I'm going to get mad. But there was in 2016. It's not really the new era of Eve anymore. It's dumb to call that, because it started in 2016, and Goons were the first ones to really see, okay, this is what has to happen. Where people made fun of people mining and ratting before because they were crabs and haha, we elite PvPers. That whole thing doesn't work anymore. But the problem is that this whole mindset had to go away first. And in an alliance like NC, who has been around for a very, very long time, before it was NC Dot, it was, Bob or whatever, and they've always had this, the core people of this group always had this mindset of, we do only PvP and we only make money to, sustain ourselves, sort of thing. And sometimes, with stuff like OTAC, obviously you can make a huge amount of money, you hop onto that, but that was never really a priority, right?
Just enough money to
now
fight.
It has become one.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's just enough money to keep fighting, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And now the mindset had to change, and unfortunately, it has taken us much longer to change our mindset than it took with Goons, and we're now at the point where we can utilize it. Obviously, we're never going to be able to catch up with Goons in terms of industry, just because of the sheer numbers. They just have so many more people than us that there's no way we could produce as much as they can. But we can certainly improve our lives by working on it now. And also, the drone regions are incredibly annoying to reach, which makes them a somewhat decent region to set this kind of stuff up in. And then we can we can work on it. And looking at the last MER, the August one, I think it's a very promising numbers. If you add up the numbers of Malpay, the Calvela expanse or whatever it's called, which is Horde's basically Horde's
Mhm.
main region,
Mhm.
and that's some decent numbers. Obviously it's not near Goons, not at all, but it's okay, and I think that's something to build on.
Yeah, they're in Kalawala Expanse.
Yeah, Calvella expanse. And to answer your question about the umbrella, the sign-out changes obviously change stuff, and I think it will take some time for people to adapt to it. But I think that the umbrella doesn't necessarily have to be super caps and titans, right? The fact that we can reach 222 systems from NSI means that we can bridge in with subcaps as well. And most of the stuff that our crabs get attacked by is not anything that you necessarily need a super or titan fleet for. We mostly deal with wormhole crews, which usually don't field much more than maybe 20, 30 people, which you can easily deal with like 100 of anything. Literally, you could probably take cormorants and beat them. And then we have test fleets sometimes that come through a wormhole with like a full fleet of Stukas or in it, right? And those are the more painful fleets to deal with, because 250 Stukas just suck to deal with. But it's possible. So very much not necessarily needed with caps.
Mm-hmm. Those are
Honestly,
go ahead.
Honestly, I don't even remember the last time we dropped supers and titans on anything. Mainly, it's been just haul revs.
Yeah, or dreads, I guess, which you can just throw around because it costs nothing.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Lex.
We were talking the other day, and someone reminded me about the old SOV map. And I remember 10 years ago, we used to look at the SOV map every day, and every day we'd look at the news to see what was happening around the changes to the SOV map. But now when you look at it, generally not much is happening. What would we need to get from where we are now, where what we look at is the MER, so we're in an economic era, to get back to the SOV warfare era, where that was the exciting thing that we were looking at every day?
I don't think you can answer that question. If I tried, it would probably take 3 hours. And also, I don't think that's true, because if you look at what era we are in now, yeah, the ZOF map isn't changing too much, but we've had some rather large changes just recently. A couple of months ago, NCPL Horde, we were all kind of, well, Horde not, but NCPL, we were kicked out of Tribute, Veil of the Silent, all those regions moved up. And if you look at the ZOF map now, I don't know any of those alliances, man. All those people that moved into Tribute and Veil, like the people that hold that off now, I've never heard of them, most of them anyways. And I think that's cool, At least somebody is there to fill the void. I was honestly worried that, like, once we're kicked out, who's going to fill the void, right? Because I was pretty sure that there was no one, but there is apparently someone. So that's cool. Yeah, but your question is it's a very broad question. I don't think Eve is in as bad of a state as people think it is. Best example of that is the whole Legacy versus Winterco stuff going on down south, and it's actually a very interesting conflict to watch, in my opinion, because they're somewhat equal in terms of strength, and nobody's really. I mean, yeah, we're third partying there. I think PL is deployed down there too. I'm honestly not too sure.
They are.
And then we're taking some fleets down sometimes, but it's a pretty equal thing down there at the moment, and I think it's great to watch. And then hopefully maybe we can start something with us and GOTG in the north as well, and then we have two conflicts going on at the same time, and honestly that's not too bad at all. That's pretty average. And then there's a lot more going on that we don't talk about because it's not quote unquote newsworthy, but there's these small fights going on between like small scale alliances that maybe can feel like 30, 40, 50 dudes each, in regions like Wicked Creek or some shit, Scalding Pass. They just fight every day, but nobody notices it because it's not a battle that's worth reporting on anymore these days. But what battles are really worth reporting on these days that don't involve 100 titans or some shit?
There you go.
People just like got so, I don't know how you say it. People just get so there's a great German word for this, but I don't know what it is in English. Anyhow,
say it in German.
Abgestumpft. I don't know what it means in English. It basically means that you just don't care anymore because if you use a certain medication a lot, right? Sometimes, or if you drink a lot of alcohol, you need to drink more and more for it to have the same effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like that with big battles. Like who, like, if you post a battle report on Reddit of some fight where maybe 20-30 billion ISK was lost, each side lost like 10-15 battleships, everybody goes like, okay, who cares, this battle, I don't care, like that was just 30 battleships. But for those people, it might have been a big fight, you know, and that's what I'm saying. Like those kind of fights go on all the time and nobody notices them, and I think that's something to keep in mind.
I think this is the point, though. You used to see it reflected on the changes in sovereignty, but now the fight happens without necessarily any effect on sovereignty.
Nobody gives a shit, man. Like, who cares about Zov anymore these days?
Not only
you,
that,
you can.
That's good.
You can hold your space. You make some money there, whatever. Like Zov isn't really needed anymore. You can make money in any kind of space, and you can make ridiculous. I mean, the best money you could make at the moment is by running fucking missions in Vino, and you make some insane money per hour. But it's also really try hard. You know, it's never been my thing. So it's just, nobody really cares about Zov anymore. And it's fine, I think. Everybody just needs to, like, that's the beauty about EVE. Everybody can do what they care about, and that's cool.
Honestly, another reason why you're not seeing a lot of Sov conflicts right now is because that nobody really wants to go and toast this shit. It's literally 8. So, like, when you have, like, before you used to see people roam in and shoot like anchor a TCU or something, or shoot a TCU, and you would see Sov constantly drop. But like these groups now, they don't want to go in and intoses because, you know, if it's a high ADM, you're going to be sitting there for like 30-40 minutes trying to intoses this thing, and then somebody's going to come blap you with an interceptor gang or a Stuka gang, and it's not worth it.
So the technical Sov isn't worth moving the maps around, but the fights are still happening and the conflicts are still happening.
Yeah, and the spheres of influence are as big as well, so that you can't really do much expansion in 0-0 without getting involved with some bigger group, right? Tribute and Vina or Vale were probably one of the better examples recently where people actually didn't give a damn. So people could just move in there without anyone really caring, right? But if you try to move in somewhere in the south, either test or FRT or goons are going to get involved because they don't want some random wild card near their sphere of influence, right? So they're going to get involved, or somebody's going to badfault them because just totally going to be super kills. You don't know how many times I've been poked from some random lows. They come, look, Snuff bashed my poker with 4 Titans. You want to kill those 4 Titans? And it's like, sure, I'm totally going to kill those 4 Titans if I try. Because that's how it works, right? And that happens all the time. So there's only very few spots in 0-0 and EVE where you can actually try to move in or try to take some off without, you know, upsetting some giant that you can't deal with. There's like 4 giants in EVE right now, or 3, I guess, and yeah, like nobody can beat any of those. Like the only giants the only people that can beat those giants are themselves, right? You have goons,
Right.
well, I guess 4. You have goons, you have legacy, you have Winter Co, and then you have like us, PanFam, or whatever you want to call us, right? Like nobody can fuck with either of those groups except those groups. It's just the way it is. Like, yeah, and then, you know, technically you could even break it down in 2 blocks because technically PanFam and Winter Co, we are sort of frenemies, whatever you want to call it, and then you have Legacy and Goons. Yeah. So you have two big power blocks, and the only people that can hurt those 2 power blocks is the opposite power block basically, and then that's it. And everybody else who tries just gets fucked. Sorry for using the effort. I'm sorry.
All right, sorry. Is there any progress being made towards making it a more diverse situation with Blackout, or is that really still what's going on, and is that still the best way to organize yourselves?
I still believe that the Blackout was mainly aimed at bots, to be honest. I still don't think that anyone at CCP thought that the Blackout would do anything but just eliminate bots. And I'm hoping to God that those, you know, if you look at the PCU, if you look at that huge drop in the active player line, at least the one that Noisy Gamer showed, obviously if you look at CCP numbers it's all fine, but I'm just hoping that all of those are bots. And I mean the numbers would support it, because if you look at the MER, if you look at the ratting numbers, if you look at the bounty numbers of the MER, they just went into the dumpster, right? Yes. And that is, I'm really, really hoping that most of those is bots. And I think it is, actually. I think obviously some people probably quit, although I think, you know, the Sino changes actually are way worse in that regard than the Blackout was. I don't think the Blackout mattered too much to real players, but it really hurt bots, right? So I think that that's very much the case. I think that the Blackout was mostly aimed at, you know, sort of working the bot problem.
Yeah, I think that's understated. I think that is such a big deal. If you look at bots on this chart here, I don't know if you can see, it's the middle chart. You can see there's a massive drop off in NPC kills. But if you switch over to ship kills and pods, that's relatively stable. So it means players are fighting each other and killing each other and podding each other, but the NPCing has gone way down.
Well, I mean, I could also make a counterpoint to that as well. You know, we have other people now, like say, look at NC for example. We have 130 Rorquals. You know, most of the time that used to be like supers and titans out ratting. Now we've moved to the drone lands, and now you don't see that anymore. You see everybody in a Rorqual because that's what we've been pushed into doing. So like, that's the most stable income possible for them at the moment, and especially with Blackout, not knowing what's there. There was a high chance that, you know, if a 250 Stuka Fleet showed up, that your Nyx was going to get fucking killed. Oh, sorry, your Nyx was going to get killed before you know, the response fleet got there. You know, with the Rorqual, you hit the panic and just wait. But I mean, I don't know.
Do you think? Do you think if the Chaos era shifted us away from like ADMs, which is basically actively defending your space by isking inside the space, to actively defending space with fights, would that be welcomed by players, or do you think they'd complain to high heaven about it?
It depends which kind of players you talk about. Also, I don't think the Chaos era is aimed at anything, because that would defeat the purpose of Chaos era. I think they're just randomly changing stuff and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
You know, the Chaos era. That's a topic I'm really reluctant to go into, because
He's got feelings.
I wish there was a great plan, but I really, really don't think there is. And I think that what they're doing is a very weird approach. Of, you know, they acknowledge the problem. They acknowledge a very, very severe issue that EVE has always had, which is keeping new players around, right? And they've tried to work on and fix the new player experience for years and years now, and it's never worked. And I'm not sure what they're trying to make EVE into, because I don't think EVE is ever going to be a World of Warcraft or whatever. Like, it's never going to be casual friendly. You're never going to have the numbers that a World of Warcraft gets. That's just not going to happen. And I don't think it would be good for EVE either. Every time some mainstream community or group came into EVE, they failed horribly within the first couple of weeks. Like, the best example still to this day to me is when the big streamer Destiny, some of you may know him, he played EVE for a while back in like 2012 or 11 or something, and he basically he was a big, well, he's still somewhat big streamer, but he basically streamed and he got like 10k 11k average viewers back then, right, which was huge at the time. And he started to play EVE, and obviously all his stream followers, they wanted to play the game with him, so they started playing EVE, and they did a corp. He formed a corp, and they moved into Syndicate. And obviously everybody kind of just, oh look, it's like 1,000 new players that don't know anything about EVE, and they went there to grief them. I literally went into their staging system. I went there with a PvP ship. I just warped to asteroid belt 1-1, and I wrote in local, help, I need help killing this rat in belt 1-1. And you would have like tons of noobs. They would warp in their thrashers and then noob ships, and I would just kill all of them. And they were like, oh, you're an asshole, and blah blah blah. And then they would report me, and then the GMs would tell them, yeah, well, get good, right? And everybody, well, this is kind of a shit game, and they would leave, right? Because they don't get the mentality of EVE.
Isn't that a problem? Isn't that a problem that guys, I mean, these guys are trying to be helpful, so they're expecting a different experience than they get. Then they are educated on what EVE, I imagine you think what EVE is, which is brutality and trickery and that sort of thing. But now they're gone.
Yeah, it's sad. I regret that I did that back then, right? A little bit, at least. It was a lot of fun, but I don't think it's a problem, right? Like, noobs that are 1 day old,
it is a
they
problem
shouldn't be in 0-0 unless they are ready to have that happen to them. If they want to have a safe space, they should stay in ISEC until they're ready to die, and then they go to 0-0.
Yes, totally agree with that. Yes, but it is a problem because retainment or retention is a problem.
Yeah, apparently. It's terrible. It's horrible. 90% or something like that of the people that check out EVE quit within the first 24 hours.
Right, but isn't it because players like you destroy them?
No. Well, it's more than, it's not even, it happens before even that.
The retention
like you just
problem.
said it right there, that people should not be going into null until they're ready.
Yeah.
But that isn't what we tell people. We tell people that if you're not in Null, you're not really playing the game.
Like the streamer
So-
Destiny's like, let's go to Syndicate, guys. They're totally unprepared for Syndicate.
It would have been
Yeah,
nice
but-
if they would have had an opportunity like in the modern day where there's no war decks, and so that way they could like develop themselves a little bit in high sec, feel their feet a little bit before they feel necessary to go into null sec to get their faces stomped in.
If you want to be in 0-0 on day one, you can be. You just have to join a group that is, specialized in helping you out, like Horde, like Karma Fleet.
Right, want
Brave.
to and should are two
And
different
you'll be fine.
things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
The problem is that we tell our new people that they should go and join these things really quick. But as you just pointed out, a new person that's just dragged into Null without any real preparation, just told that like, no, high sec sucks. Come to Null, be part of
Yeah, but
our alliance.
they have a little more protection. They'll live a little longer. They'll be a part of something bigger. They might
I'm
eventually.
suggesting that
pick it
they're
up.
still not ready for it.
Anyhow, what I was trying to say is
Yeah.
what I think they're doing with the Chaos era is they're changing stuff sort of randomly, I guess, or something that sounds good, and they're trying to find basically, and I hate using this, but they're basically throwing shit at the wall and trying to see what sticks, right?
Mm.
And I think that is just a very, very poor approach of fixing the game. Again, I don't know. I have not specifically asked Hilmar, hey, dude, what is your great plan? He may have more of a plan than I think he does, or they do, the development team, or whoever makes these decisions, right? But
Mhm.
I'm just not convinced. But we'll see, man. Like I said, the summit was a good first start, and I'm a bit more hopeful. Hopefully, we'll
Yeah.
see what the red line is now.
I have heard the criticisms that, oh, this is the think less, do more approach, and this is chaos where they don't have a plan, and these things, as you just did, I have, Dirk kind of laughs at Hilmar and CCP about this sort of thing, but I think the reality of the situation is, if they take 2 years to develop an NPE and it fails, they've spent a lot of development time and money on something that didn't work. And they've done it.
Yeah, but that's also their fault because we've been telling them not to do it. Like, the problem is that CCP still thinks it is their responsibility to. I think the responsibility of CCP is literally maybe the first 2 hours of somebody playing the game. After that, it should be handed off to some We've spent more time, the new player-friendly organizations like Horde, Karma Fleet, etc. They spend more time, and they have the infrastructure to deal with the new people. And there's more, like EVE University. I'm only naming the 0-0 ones, obviously, because
Sure.
I have 0-0 bias. But there's multiple groups out there. They have the infrastructure and they have the time to actually deal with the people. And I don't think in a game like EVE, CCP can't even do it. I don't think it's possible. And no matter how great the NPE would be, I don't think anyone would really stick around for that. Because the reason people join EVE, and I'm still convinced that 90 or I don't know, man, like some high percentage of people that check out EVE do it because they read an article about some huge battle, or they read about the history of EVE and all the wars that happened. That's why people join the game, not because, man, it looks really great how I'm killing these rats right now. No, it's the history, it's the stories.
That might be a self-fulfilling bias, though. Like that's who you come into contact with. That's who came to the game. There's a lot of people who are just missioning who got interested in it because it's a space simulator. In fact,
that is correct. A lot of people have heard about the grand. A lot of people have heard about like the grand complexity of EVE. Like there's more than just the big fleet fights that attracts people. Like obviously that gets a lot of headlines, but when I talk to people who are new, a lot of them are interested in spaceship MMOs and something different. And, I tried this years ago and it kicked my butt, so now I'm back. Like those are the kind of stories that I hear.
Yeah. It's a mixture.
The biggest complaint that I always hear from people that have tried to even quit really quickly is that they've joined the game, they don't understand it. They try for 2 days and then they leave, and it's like, and I've always tell them, oh well, you got to join a group, and they join a group, and the group doesn't teach them anything. So it's like, if EVE really wants to retain players, I believe they need to put more emphasis on its training, like the training of new bros when they join. Like, don't put them in an NPC corp. Put them in a corp that somebody's running that's actively doing a good job.
I think that there's a misnomer about what misunderstanding about what CCP is doing right now. Like, we think of the MPE, we think of the tutorial, right? Like, you show up, here's 50 blocks of text. Hope you enjoy how to play the game now, or hope you know how to play the game now. And that isn't really what I'm seeing or what they're working on or what modern game design kind of shows. Like, you want a tutorial that's as invisible and as small as possible just to get the person into the thing. But you want a game that teaches you how to play it. For a long time, we have accepted or even advocated for a UI that is complex and keeps information obscured. And I think that CCP is getting away from that. And you're seeing that in things like the new warnings that are given in the fitting tools. Right now, the MPE, or previously, the MPE teaches nothing about CPU and power grid at all. And yet we expect our players to be able to fit things. At least now they can actually like start to see what they're doing wrong, or at least, and then possibly even understand what to do it. If you put in too much CPU now, there's a thing that says too much CPU, and then also explains to you, hey, you can train these skills if you want to increase your CPU, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well,
give the player the ability to understand the game, and then you won't need this long, complex MPE.
Right. I think Killah Bee, I think we're all kind of in agreement. Killah Bee was saying the first few hours of EVE Online are up to CCP, and this is a part of that, right? Getting them acquainted with the UI and how to do things and how to actually become a little self-sufficient before they even ask for help. Because the people that I've talked to that quit playing EVE that I know, not my friends, but people I know that's tried it, said they couldn't really get past the UI. They said they're going to have to read manuals to even begin to play. And they didn't have any interest in the Epic Wars or any of that kind of stuff. They just wanted to get into the game, and they couldn't. They were blocked by some huge wall of too many things, too many different ways. It wasn't streamlined enough. So CCP needs to fix that little part. And then if they can have some agency and feel like they can actually do a thing, then they would feel valuable to a corp and apply. I think that all makes sense, and I think it's all the same
right
thing.
there.
Yeah.
So we have this like idea. Killah Bee just even expounded it, where a new player should join a player organization to learn the game. Right. This is a logical thought that we believe and carry on with. But the problem is that isn't how human behavior works. Right. Like, if you start playing a game and there's all these clans, you don't think to yourself, man, I have no idea how this game works. I should join a clan. You think, I should learn how to play this game and then join a clan. Because nobody wants to join a group just to feel like they're being a burden, right? So what happens is that actually between that and the whole fact that the one thing that players know about EVE Online when they first join is to trust nobody, the entire system is designed to prevent people from seeking out a player corp and then joining it, let alone CCP like emphasizing it. So,
and by the way, being a small corp and having new players is no Midas, or is no secret weapon either, because new players are a burden. They're a hell of a burden. Have you tried to teach someone how to play EVE that didn't know anything, had no reference points? It takes hours. Yes, you have. Yeah, because you do that. But it takes hours and hours to do really mundane things like push the button here to get the asteroid to, It's not exciting, and it takes very, very patient corporations to do it, almost specialized people to do it.
Well, the thing I noticed is that even I, after doing this for years, make incorrect assumptions of what kind of mistakes a new player can make and how things can be confusing for them, right? So, like, you can even try to be explaining things using effectively normal parlance. Like, you're trying to teach them about shield tanking and armor tanking, and all of a sudden you realize that they have no idea what resistances are. They don't even know, you know what I mean? Like, or how to fit a module. Like, they barely stumbled through the tutorial. They might not know what safeties are. They may not know, like there are fundamental things where you might just be like, okay, warp to something. And for you, it sounds really simple, but for them, they have no idea what they're doing.
I think
the problem is that there's only a certain percentage chance that they will even be able to communicate to you what they don't know, because they don't have the right language either. Yeah. So they're trying to explain to you a problem, and like they're explaining to you a scenario, and you're like, that is impossible. Like, I'm sure that's not exactly what happened, but I don't know what did happen. So I don't know what went wrong that led you to believe that this other thing happened. You know what I mean?
But even before all that, you're right about all that. But even before that, some of the complaints I heard was like, I didn't know how to stop my ship. And that's the kind of thing that should be intuitive. Like I go, I stop. That's intuitive because that's the very basic building blocks of everything else. But we're going to have to like continue this conversation off the air. I want to thank everybody for coming around. Do you guys have any last thoughts that spoke up today, like Killah Bee or Apollo? Is Ron still with us? Or Ron took off? If not, go ahead.
Last thoughts. I don't know. Not really.
They don't have
chaos.
They don't have to be profound.
Well, my last thought is I hope Killah Bee comes back and starts leading fleets again.
Yeah, I already set up. I'm gonna have Bob create me some UTZ timers on Tuesday or some shit. Hopefully, somebody from Dead Coalition hears this. I will fight you fairly. I will only bring subcaps, I promise, and bring your A game. Hopefully, I don't know if they have any EOTZFCs to be honest, but if you do, come fight me.
No.
Convo me or mail me in game, and we can set a time and a date.
Or even message him on Discord. Fine.
I will bring. You can choose the doctrine that I have to field, the EOTZFC, and you can bring your own. That sounds fair. It has the same ship class, so same ship class. Okay. So if you bring a cruiser, choose any hack, and then you can choose which hack I have to field, and I'll do that, and then we can fight.
Falcon Fleet. Or not Falcon.
I don't think Falcon is the hack.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he's choosing the Zealot, to be honest. I'm hoping that he will do Munins and he chooses the Zealot for me. That'd be kind of fun. I love Zealots.
Don't tell him what you want.
I love Zealots too. That's a great ship. Cinnable and Zealots.
They're just so bad at the moment. It's kind of sad.
I suggest Crusaders.
Okay.
Oh yeah, but then he would have to do a frig too, right? Like that's the thing. We could do a Battleship slug out. I wouldn't mind. I can do Blast of Megatrons, and he can do, I don't know.
Leave your bombers at home.
Chinese and Russian players that probably aren't watching this show, you have been called out. Killah Bee wants to fight you guys. Maybe Sort Dragon and his administrative darkness alliance can arrange it.
Dead Alliance.
Dead Alliance. We will see you guys tomorrow as G Fleet starts. We're looking for an announcement. Should be interesting. And Ashterothi reminded us that the invasions have been changing every day now, not every week. And you can see some of them in LowSec. It's pretty wild. Thanks everybody for watching us. I'm going to move you over to raid Bjorn B. Take care.
Thanks, Manuel.
See you next week.
Okay.
Well, that spiraled out of control.